welcome to our deep dive into dementia. You've provided some excerpts from Dementia Second Ed by Mario Maj and Norman Sartorius.
Yeah.
So today we're going to be exploring this really fascinating topic.
It's a really great book.
Yeah.
I think it really takes us beyond just sort of the surface level.
Yeah, I think that's what I'm really interested in.
Yeah.
Is it seems like everyone uses that word dementia.
Right.
But I'm not always sure what it actually means.
Yeah.
You know, I know it's not just about forgetting where you put your keys.
Right.
So what exactly is dementia?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that the book tackles head on.
Okay.
Dementia is a brain disorder,
Okay.
not just senility or a normal part of aging,
Okay.
as many people mistakenly believe.
Okay.
It actually causes physical changes in the brain that affect a whole range of cognitive abilities,
Oh, wow.
not just memory.
So it's not just forgetting things.
No.
What else is involved?
It's really a decline in several crucial mental functions. We're talking about thinking, reasoning, judgment,
Okay.
even behavior and personality.
Wow, that's a lot more than I realized.
Yeah.
And I guess that's why it's so important to understand the different types of dementia, right? Because
Right.
it's not just one thing.
It's not a homogeneous disease at all.
Yeah.
And the book does a good job of breaking down
Right.
these different types.
Yeah.
But let's start with the most common one, Alzheimer's disease.
Okay. Alzheimer's, I hear that word thrown around a lot,
Right.
but I'm not sure I fully grasp what makes it different from
Yeah.
other types of dementia.
So Alzheimer's disease has a few key characteristics.
Okay.
It typically develops gradually over many years.
Okay.
And family history can play a significant role,
Oh.
especially in cases where it shows up earlier in life.
So it's kind of like a slow burn.
Yeah, you could say that.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that for a long time,
Yeah.
doctors thought what they called senile dementia was a separate thing,
Oh.
just a normal part of getting old. But there was a groundbreaking study by Tomlinson et al.
Okay.
That proved that that wasn't true.
Okay.
They found that the brain changes in what people used to call senile dementia
Yeah.
were actually the same as in Alzheimer's.
So it was debunking this long-held myth
It was.
and helping us understand Alzheimer's as its own distinct disease.
Exactly.
I guess that's why it's so important to have accurate information.
It is. And speaking of different types of dementia,
Yes.
the book also covers a few other important ones
Okay.
that we should be aware of.
All right, let's dive in besides Alzheimer's.
Right.
What else should we be on the lookout for?
Well, there's vascular dementia,
Okay.
which is caused by strokes that damage parts of the brain responsible for memory and thinking.
Okay.
And unlike Alzheimer's,
Uh-huh.
the onset of vascular dementia can be pretty sudden
Because of the stroke.
because of those strokes. Yeah,
So one day you're fine and the next things could change dramatically.
they could.
Wow, that's kind of scary.
It can be. And then there's mixed dementia,
Okay.
which is basically a combination of Alzheimer's and vascular dementia.
A double whammy.
Unfortunately, yes. And then we have Lewy body dementia,
Okay.
which is interesting because it often involves vivid hallucinations,
Oh,
something we don't typically associate with dementia.
I would not have guessed that.
So that's a key differentiator from Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And finally, we have frontotemporal dementia,
Okay.
which is unique in that it affects behavior and language
Okay.
before memory problems become apparent.
So someone with frontotemporal dementia
Yeah.
might have personality changes or struggle to communicate
Uh-huh.
before they start forgetting things.
Exactly. It highlights the diverse ways that dementia can manifest.
This is all really eye-opening.
Yeah.
But I have to ask, how common is dementia, really?
Right.
What are the chances that any of us will
Yeah.
develop one of these conditions?
Well, that's where the book gets pretty sobering.
Okay.
The prevalence of dementia increases exponentially with age. In fact, it doubles every 5.1 years.
Double.
Okay.
So the older we get, the higher our risk.
Yes. The book actually gives some really good statistics to illustrate this.
Okay.
For example, in the 65 to 69 age group,
Okay.
the prevalence of dementia is about 1.5%.
Okay.
But then if you jump ahead to the 85 to 89 age group,
Oh, wow.
it skyrockets to over 22%.
That's a huge jump.
It is.
So the risk keeps doubling as we age.
Yeah,
This is definitely information everyone should be aware of.
it is, especially as our population continues to age.
For sure. Besides age, are there other things that might make us more susceptible to dementia?
There are a few confirmed risk factors for Alzheimer's specifically.
Okay.
You already talked about family history,
Yeah.
but another major one is, as we mentioned, old age.
Not much we can do about that one.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah.
But there's also head trauma.
Head trauma. So concussions and serious head injuries.
Yes. The research on this link is still ongoing, but it's been observed that a history of head trauma is more prevalent in individuals with Alzheimer's.
Interesting. So taking care of our brain health throughout life is crucial.
It is.
It makes you wonder if there's anything we can do to protect ourselves or if it's just a matter of luck.
Well, it's not all doom and gloom.
Okay.
Research has pointed to some potential protective factors.
Okay.
And one area the book highlights is anti-inflammatory drugs.
Like ibuprofen or aspirin.
Yeah, those are a couple of examples.
Okay.
And the book references research indicating that these drugs might have a protective effect.
Okay.
But it does emphasize that more research is needed.
Okay, so it's not a guaranteed solution.
Right.
But it's something to keep an eye on. What other potential protective factors are out there?
Well, for women, estrogen replacement therapy
Okay.
has shown some promise
Okay.
in potentially reducing the risk.
Interesting. So hormones could play a role
They could.
in protecting against dementia. Are there any other lifestyle factors that might help?
Well, there's a fascinating link between education and dementia risk.
Okay.
Higher education levels
Okay.
appear to offer some protection.
So the more we learn, the better we protect our brains.
That's what it seems like.
I like the sound of that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should sign up for another online course.
Yeah.
And lastly, the book even touches on the possibility of developing a vaccine against Alzheimer's in the future.
It does. It's still in the very early stages of exploration,
Oh, wow.
but it is an exciting possibility.
That would be amazing. A vaccine for Alzheimer's.
Yeah,
It's great to know that researchers are working hard
they are.
to find ways to prevent and treat dementia.
Yeah.
But let's say someone is already experiencing some cognitive changes.
Right.
How is dementia actually diagnosed?
It's a multifaceted process, as the book explains.
Okay.
It begins with the detailed medical history and physical examination.
So like talking to your doctor about
Yes.
any concerning symptoms.
Exactly. They'll want to know about any cognitive changes you've noticed, any medical conditions you have,
Okay.
your family history. Then they'll likely order some neuropsychological testing.
What does that involve?
These are standardized tests that evaluate different cognitive abilities,
Okay.
like memory, attention, language skills, problem solving.
Okay.
And they'll use tests like the Mini Mental State Examination or NMSE
Okay.
or the Functional Assessment Staging or FAST.
So they're not just testing your memory. It's
Yeah.
a broader assessment
It is.
of your cognitive function.
Right. And in addition to these tests,
Okay.
brain imaging can also play a role.
Brain imaging? You mean like MRIs and things like that?
Exactly. MRIs and PET scans
Okay.
can help doctors visualize the brain
Okay.
and look for any structural changes or abnormalities.
So diagnosing dementia is like putting together a complex puzzle, using different pieces of information to get a complete picture.
It is. It's a great analogy.
I imagine there must be challenges
Yeah.
in making an accurate diagnosis, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the toughest challenges is distinguishing between normal age-related changes
Okay.
and the early stages of dementia.
Right. Because we all have those moments where we forget things or misplace our keys.
Right.
How do doctors know
Yeah.
when it's something more than just normal forgetfulness?
That's a crucial question.
Oh.
They look for patterns in your cognitive changes.
Okay.
Assess the severity of your symptoms.
Okay.
Determine how much they're impacting your daily life.
So it's not just about forgetting an appointment.
Right.
It's about how that forgetfulness is affecting your ability to function.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another challenge
Right.
lies in differentiating between the various types of dementia.
Right.
As we discussed earlier, there are several,
Yeah.
and they can have overlapping symptoms,
Okay.
which makes it tricky to pinpoint the exact diagnosis.
So it's not always a simple, like, you have this type situation.
No, not always. The book even mentions a growing recognition of something called mixed dementia, which means someone might have features of both Alzheimer's and vascular dementia.
That sounds complicated.
It can be. And that's why a comprehensive evaluation is so important,
Right.
to get the most accurate diagnosis possible.
What happens if someone is diagnosed with dementia?
Yeah,
What are their treatment options?
right.
Is there a cure?
Sadly, there's currently no cure for most types of dementia.
Oh, that's tough to hear.
It is. However, there are treatments that can manage symptoms,
Okay.
potentially slow down the progression,
Okay.
and support the person's quality of life.
So the focus shifts from curing the disease
Right.
to making life as good as possible for the individual.
Exactly. And there are both pharmacological
Okay.
and non-pharmacological approaches to this.
Pharmacological, you mean medication?
Yes. The book discusses cholinesterase inhibitors,
Okay.
a class of drugs commonly prescribed for Alzheimer's.
I've heard of those, but I don't really know what they do.
They increase the levels of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine in the brain. Acetylcholine is essential for memory and learning.
Okay.
And unfortunately, in Alzheimer's, the brain produces less of it.
So these medications boost the levels
Yes.
of this important brain chemical?
Exactly. While they don't cure the disease,
Okay.
they can slow the progression of symptoms
Okay.
and even improve cognitive abilities for some time.
It's good to know. Are there any specific medications in this category that the book mentions?
It highlights donepezil,
Okay.
rivastigmine,
Okay.
and galantamine.
Good to know. What about downsides? Are there any side effects?
There can be, unfortunately.
Okay.
The book mentions some, especially those affecting sleep.
Okay.
Some people experience insomnia or vivid dreams
Oh, wow.
by taking these medications.
So it's a balancing act,
It-
weighing the benefits against the potential side effects.
Exactly. What's right for one person may not be right for another.
You also mention non-pharmacological approaches to
Right.
managing dementia.
Yeah.
What are those?
These are interventions that don't involve medication,
Okay.
but can be incredibly helpful
Okay.
for both individuals with dementia and their caregivers.
Okay.
The book highlights psychosocial interventions,
Okay.
such as reality orientation,
Okay.
reminiscence therapy,
Okay.
and behavioral therapy.
Okay. Let's unpack those. What exactly is reality orientation?
Reality orientation uses visual aids and verbal cues to help someone with dementia
Okay.
stay oriented to time, place, and person.
Okay.
It might involve using clocks, calendars,
Okay.
family photos,
Okay.
or other familiar objects.
So it's all about providing reminders and anchoring them
Yes,
to the present moment.
that's right. It can be especially beneficial for individuals
Okay.
experiencing confusion and disorientation.
What about reminiscence therapy? What does that look like?
Reminiscence therapy encourages people to delve into their past,
Okay.
recalling and sharing memories.
Okay.
This often involves prompts like photos, music, or objects from their past.
I love that idea. It seems like such a gentle
It
and
is.
positive way to connect.
Yeah.
With someone with dementia.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it often evokes happy memories.
That's great.
And improves their mood.
And it must be a nice way for families and caregivers
Obvious.
to connect with their loved one as well.
Absolutely. Sharing stories, laughing together, and celebrating their life can be incredibly meaningful.
And the last type of intervention you mentioned was behavioral therapy.
Right. Behavioral therapy helps address
Okay.
those challenging behaviors that can sometimes arise with dementia,
Okay.
like agitation, aggression, or wandering.
So it's about understanding why those behaviors are happening
Yes.
and finding ways to manage them.
Exactly. Often those behaviors are a way for the person with dementia to communicate a need or a feeling
Okay.
they can't express in words.
That makes sense.
So it's about identifying the triggers for these behaviors and developing strategies to prevent or reduce them.
It sounds like it takes a collaborative effort
It does.
involving everyone who interacts with the person.
It does. And the book emphasizes the importance of educating and training caregivers so they can understand how to manage these situations effectively and compassionately.
So it's not about restraining the person or punishing them
Right.
for behaviors they can't control.
Exactly.
It's about creating a supportive
Yeah,
and understanding environment.
exactly. And that's what makes the book's focus on the caregiver's experience so important.
Yeah, we haven't talked much about the impact dementia has on families and caregivers yet.
And that's a huge part of the story.
Yeah,
And we'll definitely delve into that in more detail.
I'm looking forward to it. This has been a fantastic start
Word?
to our deep dive into dementia,
Yeah.
so thank you.
You're welcome. You're right. We could definitely talk more about the caregivers. It's easy to focus on the person with dementia, but their families and caregivers are on this journey too, and it's a tough one.
It's got to be incredibly challenging to watch someone you love
It is.
struggle with these changes. I imagine it takes a toll on everyone involved.
It does.
Ah,
The book really drives home the point that caregivers face an immense burden. You know, they're dealing with emotional stress, physical exhaustion, and often financial strain.
yeah.
It's not just about helping with daily tasks. It's
Yeah.
about navigating a whole new reality.
I can only imagine the emotional toll it takes seeing someone you love slowly
Did you
lose
read it?
their cognitive abilities.
It's a form of grieving, even while the person is still alive.
Oh, wow.
You're mourning the loss of the person they once were. And that's incredibly difficult. And the book talks about how important it is to have support systems in place
Yeah.
for caregivers, not just for the individuals with dementia.
That makes so much sense. What kind of support systems are out there
Well,
for caregivers? Where can they turn for help?
support groups are a great resource.
Okay.
Connecting with others who understand what you're going through,
Yeah.
sharing experiences and learning coping strategies can be incredibly valuable.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that you're not alone in this journey.
It's like a lifeline knowing there are others who get it.
Exactly. And then there's respite care, which can give caregivers a temporary relief.
Okay.
This could involve a professional coming into the home to provide care,
Okay.
or having the person with dementia stay in a specialized facility
Okay.
for a short period.
It sounds like a much-needed break.
It is.
For caregivers, they need time to take care of themselves,
Right?
recharge and avoid burnout.
Absolutely.
Right.
You can't pour from an empty cup. And speaking of being equipped to care for someone with dementia,
Yes.
the book highlights the importance of education and training
Okay.
for caregivers.
That makes a lot of sense. It's one thing to be loving and supportive,
Right.
but it's another thing to know how to handle the unique challenges that dementia brings.
Right. Caregivers need specific information and skills to care for someone with dementia effectively.
Okay.
Understanding the disease process, learning how to manage challenging behaviors, figuring out how to communicate effectively with someone whose cognitive abilities are declining.
Right.
It's all crucial.
It's almost like caregivers need specialized training to navigate this new terrain.
In a way, they do.
Mhm.
Without proper training, it can be overwhelming and incredibly difficult to provide the best possible care.
Yeah.
And I'm glad the book gives so much attention to the caregiver's experience.
Mm-hmm.
It's a reminder that we need to care for the caregivers as much as we care for those with dementia.
Well said.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears a bit, let's talk about the diagnosis process for dementia. You mentioned earlier that it's a multifaceted process.
Right.
What does that actually look like in practice?
It's more complicated than just running a simple test, unfortunately.
Okay.
The book emphasizes that it's a multi-step process,
Okay.
starting with a thorough medical history and physical exam.
So the doctor would ask about any cognitive changes
Mm-hmm.
the person or their family has noticed,
Yeah.
along with any relevant medical conditions or family history?
Precisely. It's like gathering clues to solve a mystery.
Yeah.
The doctor's trying to piece together a picture of what's going on.
Okay.
After that initial assessment, they'll often recommend neuropsychological testing.
Okay, so what kind of tests are we talking about here?
These are standardized tests that evaluate a range of cognitive abilities,
Okay.
like memory, attention span, language skills, and executive function,
Okay.
which includes things like planning and decision-making.
So they're really putting those cognitive skills to the test, huh?
You could say that, and they often use specific tests like the mini mental state examination, or MMSE,
Okay.
or the functional assessment staging, or FAST.
What do those tests tell them?
These tests help doctors assess the severity of cognitive impairment
Okay.
and track changes over time.
Okay.
They provide a baseline and help monitor how the disease is progressing.
So it's not just about getting a diagnosis. It's
Mhm.
also about monitoring how things change over time.
Exactly. And to get an even more comprehensive picture,
Yeah.
brain imaging might also be used.
Brain image, that sounds intense.
It can be, but it provides valuable information.
Okay.
Techniques like MRI and PET scans allow doctors to visualize the brain,
Uh-huh.
look for any structural abnormalities, and see if there are any changes in brain activity.
So it's like taking a peek under the hood to see what's happening in the brain.
It is, and all of this information,
Okay.
the medical history, the neuropsychological testing, and the brain imaging, helps doctors arrive at a diagnosis.
It sounds like a complex puzzle putting all those pieces together. Are there challenges
Yeah,
involved in making an accurate diagnosis?
definitely.
Hmm.
One of the trickiest parts is differentiating normal aging from dementia,
Okay.
especially in the early stages.
Right, because we all have those moments
We do.
where we forget things or misplace our keys. How do doctors know when it's something more than just normal forgetfulness?
That's a crucial question. Doctors look at the pattern of cognitive changes,
Okay.
how severe the symptoms are, and how those symptoms impact daily life.
So it's not just about occasional memory lapses.
Right.
It's about how those lapses are affecting a person's ability to function.
Precisely. And another challenge is distinguishing between the different types of dementia. Remember how we talked about all those different syndromes?
Yeah, it seemed like there was a lot of overlap in the symptoms.
There can be, and
Right.
sometimes it's not clear-cut. The book even talks about mixed dementia,
Okay.
which is becoming increasingly recognized. It's when someone has features of both Alzheimer's disease
Okay.
and vascular
So
dementia.
it's like a combination of factors
It is.
contributing to their cognitive decline.
Exactly. And that's why a thorough evaluation is so important.
Okay.
It helps doctors get a clearer picture of what's going on
Okay.
and make the most accurate diagnosis possible.
What happens once someone is diagnosed with dementia? What are their treatment options?
Sadly, as we discussed earlier, there's no cure for most types of dementia yet,
Okay.
but there are treatments available
Okay.
to help manage the symptoms,
Okay.
possibly slow the progression
Okay.
and improve the person's quality of life.
So the focus shifts to making the most of the time they have left
Right.
and ensuring their comfort and well-being.
That's right. The book talks about both pharmacological and non-pharmacological approaches to treatment.
When you say pharmacological, you mean medication.
Right. Yes. For Alzheimer's, a common type of medication used is called cholinesterase inhibitors.
Those ring a bell? How do they work?
They increase the levels of a neurotransmitter called acetylcholine in the brain.
Okay.
Acetylcholine is essential for memory and learning,
Okay.
but in Alzheimer's, the brain produces less of it.
So these medications are like giving the brain a boost
Yeah.
of this essential chemical.
Exactly. And while they don't cure the disease,
Okay.
they have the potential to slow down symptom progression
Okay.
and improve cognitive abilities for a while.
That's encouraging to hear. Are there any specific medications in this category
Yeah.
that the book mentions?
It lists donepezil,
Okay.
rivastigmine,
Okay.
and galantamine as commonly used examples.
Good to keep those names in mind, but I imagine there are potential downsides to these medications too, right side effects.
Yes, there can be. The book mentions some particular issues related to sleep.
Okay.
Some people experience insomnia or vivid dreams while taking these medications.
Oh, wow.
It's crucial to discuss potential side effects with your doctor
Yeah.
and find a medication that's right for you.
So it's about finding a balance between the benefits of the medication
Right.
and any potential side effects.
Precisely what works well for one person might not be suitable for another.
Now, what about those non-pharmacological approaches you mentioned?
Okay.
I'm really curious about those.
These are therapies and interventions that don't rely on medication,
Okay.
but can still be very beneficial for both the person with dementia
Okay.
and their caregivers. The book highlights several psychosocial interventions that can be incredibly effective.
Psychosocial interventions, those sound intriguing. What exactly do they involve?
These interventions are all about addressing the psychological, social, and emotional needs of the individual.
Okay.
It's not just about treating the cognitive symptoms, it's about caring for the whole person.
I like that approach. It seems much more humane and holistic.
It is some common examples of psychosocial interventions include reality orientation,
Okay.
reminiscence therapy, and behavioral therapy.
Okay, let's break those down. What is reality orientation all about?
Reality orientation uses visual aids and verbal cues to help keep the person with dementia grounded in the here and now.
Okay.
It's about helping them stay oriented to time, place, and person.
So things like clocks, calendars, and family photos could be used to remind them of who they are and where they are.
Exactly. Think of it as providing gentle reminders and anchors to reality.
Yeah.
It can be especially helpful for those who are experiencing confusion or disorientation.
And what about reminiscence therapy? We touched on that earlier, but I'd love to hear more.
Reminiscence therapy encourages individuals to tap into their past and share memories.
Okay.
It often uses prompts like photos, music, or even objects from their past
Yeah.
to trigger those memories and spark conversations.
It sounds like a beautiful way to connect with someone with dementia on a deeper level.
It is. It often evokes happy memories, lifts their mood, and strengthens their sense of identity.
And it can be a special opportunity for families and caregivers
It can.
to share stories and laugh together, celebrating the person's life.
Absolutely. It's about cherishing those moments of connection.
You also mentioned behavioral therapy.
Right.
What does that approach focus on?
Behavioral therapy aims to address those challenging behaviors
Okay.
that can sometimes accompany dementia, things like agitation, aggression, or wandering.
Those behaviors can be really tough for families and caregivers to handle. How does behavioral therapy help?
It's all about understanding why those behaviors are happening
Okay.
and finding ways to manage them effectively. It often involves identifying triggers, modifying the environment,
Okay.
and teaching caregivers specific strategies to de-escalate situations and prevent challenging behaviors from occurring.
So it's about taking a proactive and compassionate approach.
It's exactly. It's important to remember that these behaviors are often a form of communication for individuals with dementia.
Okay.
They may be trying to express a need or a feeling,
Yeah.
but they lack the cognitive ability to do so clearly.
That's a really important point. It's about looking beyond the behavior
Right.
and trying to understand what the person is trying to communicate.
Precisely with the right support training and interventions, we can often manage these challenging behaviors and make life more peaceful and comfortable for everyone involved.
Speaking of fascinating insights,
Yeah.
you mentioned the concept of retrogenesis earlier.
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about that.
Retrogenesis is one of those concepts that truly makes you marvel at the complexities of the human brain.
Okay.
It explains why certain dementia symptoms appear in a specific order,
Okay.
almost as if brain development is happening in reverse.
That's wild. It's like the brain is going back in time.
You could say that.
Yeah.
It suggests that as dementia progresses,
Okay.
the brain unravels with the most recently developed areas being affected first.
So what does that look like in practice? Can you give me an example?
Think of it like this. Someone with advanced dementia might remember their childhood home vividly
Okay.
with every detail intact,
Oh.
but struggle to remember what they ate for breakfast that morning.
Oh, wow.
Their long-term memories from childhood, stored in more primitive parts of the brain,
Yeah.
remain intact, while their short-term memory associated with the more recently developed hippocampus is impaired.
That's fascinating. It's like the brain is clinging to those early memories,
It is.
the foundation of who they are for as long as it can.
It's a poignant thought. And what's amazing is that retrogenesis isn't just a theory.
Okay.
It's backed up by scientific evidence.
Wow.
Studies show that the brain regions most affected by Alzheimer's, for example, are often those that develop later in life.
So there's a biological basis for this reverse development phenomenon.
Exactly. And understanding retrogenesis can help us better predict the course of dementia, develop more targeted interventions, and provide more compassionate and personalized care.
It's a reminder that even as cognitive abilities decline,
Yeah.
the essence of the person is still there,
It is.
with a lifetime of experiences and memories.
Beautifully said. And with that in mind, let's talk about the future of dementia care.
Okay.
What are some of the promising areas of research that offer hope for prevention
Okay.
and maybe even a cure someday?
I was hoping we'd get to that. I'm always excited to hear about new discoveries
Yeah.
and breakthroughs, what's on the horizon.
There's a lot of exciting research happening right now,
Okay.
exploring various treatments and even preventive measures.
Okay.
One area that's generating a lot of buzz is the development of a vaccine for Alzheimer's disease.
A vaccine, that would be incredible.
It would be a game changer. And while it's still in the early stages of research,
Okay.
the idea is to stimulate the immune system to target and clear out amyloid plaques from the brain.
Oh, wow.
Amyloid plaques are one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's.
Oh.
So this vaccine could potentially prevent or significantly delay the onset of the disease.
So it's like training the body's own defenses
Yeah.
to fight off Alzheimer's?
Exactly. And if it proves successful, it could have a huge impact on the lives of millions of people.
Are there any other promising areas of research
Yeah.
that you'd like to highlight?
Another exciting area is stem cell therapy.
Okay.
The idea is to transplant healthy stem cells into the brain.
Okay.
These stem cells have the potential to differentiate into new neurons, essentially replacing those damaged brain cells.
So it's like giving the brain a chance to regenerate and repair itself.
It is, and while this therapy is still experimental,
Okay.
early research suggests that it might be able to improve cognitive function in individuals with dementia.
That's incredibly encouraging to hear.
It is.
It sounds like there's a lot of hope for the future.
There is, and while a cure may still be some way off,
Yeah.
research is advancing rapidly, and we're learning more about this complex condition every day.
Now, apart from medical interventions, are there any lifestyle factors that might play a role in either increasing or decreasing the risk of developing dementia?
There's a growing body of evidence that suggests lifestyle has a big impact on brain health.
Okay.
Things like diet, exercise, and cognitive stimulation can all play a role.
So what we eat, how much we move, and how we challenge our minds can all influence our risk of
Yeah.
developing dementia.
That's what the research seems to indicate. For example, a Mediterranean-style diet,
Okay.
which emphasizes fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats,
Okay.
has been linked to a lower risk of cognitive decline.
That makes sense. A healthy diet nourishes the brain just like it nourishes the body.
Exactly. And then there's exercise.
Okay.
Regular physical activity is beneficial for so many reasons,
Yeah.
and brain health is no exception.
Yeah.
Exercise increases blood flow to the brain, stimulates the growth of new brain cells,
Wow.
and improves cognitive function.
So getting our hearts pumping and our bodies moving is good for our brains too.
Absolutely. And then finally, there's cognitive stimulation.
Okay.
Engaging in mentally challenging activities,
Yeah.
like reading, doing puzzles, learning new skills, or even just socializing,
Yeah.
can help keep our brains sharp and potentially delay cognitive decline.
So it's about staying mentally active and engaged throughout our lives.
Exactly. It's like giving your brain a workout.
It's amazing how interconnected our physical and mental health really is.
It's all part of a holistic approach to well-being.
Yeah.
Taking care of our bodies and our minds throughout life can have a profound impact on our brain health in the long run.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive,
Yeah.
I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier, the economic impact of dementia. It's not just a personal and familial burden, right?
You're right. Dementia has a significant economic impact on society as a whole.
Okay.
In fact, the book dedicates an entire chapter to exploring the various costs associated with dementia care.
So what are some of the key economic considerations?
There are direct costs, which include things like medical expenses, long-term care costs, and the cost of formal caregiving services.
Okay.
And then there are indirect costs,
Okay.
which are harder to measure but equal important.
Okay.
These include lost productivity due to caregivers having to leave the workforce or reduce their work hours to provide care.
It's a ripple effect, just like the personal and familial impact we discussed earlier.
Exactly. And as the prevalence of dementia continues to rise globally,
Yeah.
so too will the economic burden. It's a pressing issue that requires innovative solutions and a focus on cost-effective interventions and support systems.
It's a reminder that dementia isn't just a medical issue.
Right.
It's a societal issue that affects us all.
Well said. And with that in mind, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive, let's take a moment to reflect on what we've learned so far. What stands out to you? What resonates most deeply?
That's a great question. We've covered a lot of ground, from the biological underpinnings of dementia
We have.
to the immense impact it has on individuals, families, and societies.
Yeah, we've explored the different types of dementia,
Yeah.
the complexities of diagnosis, the evolving landscape of treatment, and the profound importance of supporting caregivers.
We've also delved into the concept of retrogenesis,
We have.
which offers a fascinating perspective
Yeah.
on the progression of dementia
It does.
and the enduring power of memories.
It's been a journey of discovery, and I hope a reminder of the importance of knowledge, compassion, and a commitment to finding solutions.
For me, the biggest takeaway is that dementia is a human issue
Yes,
that demands our attention,
it does.
our compassion, and our unwavering support.
I couldn't agree more. And as we move into the final part of our deep dive, I encourage you to hold on to that sense of compassion and to carry with you the knowledge you've gained. Knowledge is power, and together we can make a difference.
This has been such a really in-depth look at dementia, and I feel like we've learned so much. But before we wrap up, I think it's important to talk about the ethical considerations surrounding dementia care. You know, it's not just about the medical facts. It's about how we care for people who are going through a really difficult experience.
You're absolutely right. The book actually spends a good amount of time on this, and it explores these ethical dilemmas that can come up when you're caring for individuals with dementia, especially as their cognitive abilities decline.
So what are some of the biggest ethical challenges in dementia care?
I think one of the most challenging aspects is balancing respect for the individual's autonomy with ensuring their safety and well-being. You know, as dementia progresses, people might lose the ability to make decisions for themselves.
Right. So how do you make decisions for someone who may not be able to clearly express their wishes or understand the consequences of their choices?
That's the heart of the dilemma, isn't it? And the book really emphasizes the importance of involving the individual in decision-making for as long as possible, even as their cognitive abilities decline. It's about respecting their personhood and giving them a voice, even if it's a diminished one.
That makes sense. How do you do that in practical terms?
Well, there are tools for supported decision-making that can be helpful, and I think involving a trusted family member or advocate in the process can help ensure that the individual's wishes are considered. It's a delicate balance, but it's about honoring their right to participate in decisions that affect their lives.
Are there other ethical concerns the book brings up?
Another tough one is the use of restraints in dementia. Sometimes physical or chemical restraints are used to prevent people from wandering or harming themselves or others, but the book really emphasizes that these should only be used as a last resort.
I can see why that would be controversial. Restraining someone takes away their freedom and can be very upsetting.
Exactly.
It can be dehumanizing and really go against that
person-centered approach that we strive for in dementia care. And the book stresses that restraint should only be used when absolutely necessary for safety and after all other options have been exhausted.
So it's about finding the least restrictive way to ensure the person's safety and well-being.
Precisely, and I think this is where caregiver education is so big. Critical. Caregivers need to know how to create safe environments and manage challenging behaviors without resorting to
It
restraints.
sounds like it takes a lot of skill and patience to care for someone with dementia.
It does, and compassion, and I think the book doesn't shy away from those difficult conversations surrounding end-of-life care for individuals with dementia.
Yeah, that's a tough topic to discuss, but an important one nonetheless. What does the book say about end-of-life care?
Well, as dementia progresses, people might lose the capacity to communicate their wishes about end-of-life care. So how do you make sure their preferences are honored even if they can't express them directly anymore? That's a big ethical question.
It must be heartbreaking for families to grapple with these decisions.
It is, and the book highlights the importance of advanced care planning, where individuals can document their wishes while they're still able to do so, and appointing a healthcare proxy can give someone the authority to make medical decisions on the individual's behalf if they're no longer capable.
So it sounds like there are ways to ensure that even as dementia progresses, people's wishes are respected and their dignity is maintained.
Absolutely. These ethical considerations remind us that dementia care goes beyond just treating the physical symptoms. It's about recognizing the personhood of individuals with dementia, respecting their autonomy, and advocating for their best interests throughout the course of the disease.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the world of dementia, and it's been an incredibly informative journey, and I feel like I have a much better understanding of this complex and challenging condition.
It's been my pleasure to share this journey with you. And remember, knowledge is power. The more we understand about dementia, the better equipped we are to face the challenges it presents and advocate for those affected.
To our listeners, I hope this deep dive has left you feeling informed, empowered, and perhaps even a little bit more compassionate towards those living with dementia and the people who care for them. Keep your minds active, stay curious, and remember you are not alone on this journey. Thank you for joining us.